Welcome to Justice Glow. I'm Alara, a 28-year-old pastry chef. My entire life, I've felt like an invisible shadow, constantly stepping aside so my older sister, Chloe, a famous lifestyle KOL with 500,000 followers, could always shine. At her extravagant VIP wedding, the disrespect finally hit rock bottom. They tossed me into a wobbly plastic chair right next to the waiter's trash station, treating me like a stray beggar. Meanwhile, distant relatives were seated at the most luxurious tables in the hall. I walked out that night consumed by absolute rage. But just 15 minutes later, I watched that perfect influencer sobbing uncontrollably in the hotel lobby, her flawless facade completely shattered forever. This is a story of how I finally ripped the mask off my toxic family and took back my power. If you've ever been exploited by your own blood, you'll understand exactly how I feel right now. Ever since I was a little girl, Chloe had always been the undisputed golden child of our family. She is 2 years older than me, but in my parents' eyes, she might as well be a flawless deity. Growing up, she got the best grades, won every debate tournament, and had this magnetic laugh that made everyone lean closer just to bask in her glow. My parents, both image-conscious civil servants, treated her like she could do absolutely no wrong. Me? I was the quiet one. I didn't care about designer clothes or debate clubs. My sanctuary was the kitchen, covered in flour, sketching out intricate sugar flowers and dreaming of opening an artisanal pastry shop. My parents, however, viewed my passion with thinly veiled disgust. They wanted me to pursue a respectable career, like corporate law or accounting. When I stubbornly chose to attend culinary school to become a pastry chef, they scoffed, calling it a blue-collar hobby and a waste of my potential. Even after I moved out at 20 and poured my blood, sweat, and tears into starting my own small bakery from scratch, they never took it seriously. At our family barbecues, my mother would loudly ask, "Elara, when are you going to get a real job?" Right before everyone raised their glasses to cheer for Chloe's latest brand sponsorship, Chloe and I were never close. She was the star of every room she walked into, and I was just the background scenery. Whenever there was a family event, a birthday, or an anniversary, Chloe would sweep in looking fabulous to steal the show, while I was expected to do all the heavy lifting. I would bake the multi-tiered cakes, set up the dessert tables, and make sure everything looked perfect. But I always felt like I was just part of the furniture, useful, but completely invisible. What hurt the most was how Chloe treated my business. As a lifestyle KOL, her Instagram grid was her entire world. She would frequently drop by my bakery, expecting to be handed my most expensive, labor-intensive cakes for free under the guise of sisterly support. She would take dozens of perfectly curated photos with my creations, but not once, not a single time did she ever tag my bakery's page or mention my name. When I finally gathered the courage to bring it up, my parents immediately jumped to her defense. "Your sisters," my dad would say, waving his hand dismissively. "Why are you being so calculating over a piece of cake? She's helping you just by being seen with it." I tried not to let it hurt too much. I focused on my loyal clients, my delicate sugar designs, and my own little peaceful world. But the quiet ache of being erased in my own family never really went away. The breaking point of my invisibility started when Chloe announced her engagement to the heir of a wealthy finance family. At our parents' Christmas party, she proudly stood by the fireplace, showing off a diamond ring that sparked like a disco ball. My aunts were crying tears of joy, my dad was practically bowing to his future son-in-law, and I sat in the corner, forcing a tight smile. I had spent 3 sleepless nights crafting an elaborate hand-painted holiday tart for the party, but nobody even mentioned it. Actually, that's a lie. Someone did mention it. Chloe's new fiancé complimented the tart, and Chloe just smiled and said, "Oh, thank you, I picked it up from that expensive French place downtown." From that night on, my phone buzzed nonstop with group chat updates, dress fittings, luxury resort bookings, and catering menus. My mom called me every week, but it was exclusively to talk about Chloe. If I tried to mention my bakery struggles or a new recipe I was proud of, she would quickly interrupt me with more wedding talk. I texted Chloe to congratulate her, telling her I was happy for her and a part of me truly was. But I had no idea that my lifelong role as the invisible sister was just the warm-up. I didn't know that my family was about to orchestrate the most ruthless theft of my hard work and dignity I could have ever imagined. Things began to spiral completely out of control when the preparations for Chloe's wedding of the century entered their final stretch. The massive budget my parents had eagerly drained their savings for started drying up, mostly because of Chloe's ridiculous demands, like imported Ecuadorian roses and a horse-drawn carriage. And so, one rainy Tuesday evening, my mother pushed open the door to my bakery. Without even asking how my business was doing, she cut straight to the chase, her eyes welling up with tears, a classic, familiar, manipulative performance. "Elara, sweetie," she began, her voice trembling. "Your sister needs a 5-tier wedding cake adorned with artisanal sugar flowers to match her fiancé's high society family. But we've run out of the wedding budget. You're her own flesh and blood. Could you design and bake it as your wedding gift to her? Chloe would be so incredibly proud of you." Even though my heart was still bleeding from the fact that I wasn't even included in Chloe's grand lineup of 12 bridesmaids, deep down, the invisible child inside me still desperately craved my family's validation. I stupidly thought to myself, maybe, just maybe, if I create an absolute masterpiece, they will finally see my worth. And so, against my better judgment, I agreed. That was a fatal mistake. For the next 2 weeks, I functioned like a machine. A custom 5-tier wedding cake isn't something you just whip up on a lazy Sunday afternoon. It was an architectural work of art that would easily cost upward of $5,000 at any high-end boutique bakery. I stayed awake for 4 consecutive nights. My hands were blistered, burned, and bleeding from kneading, shaping, and dusting hundreds of delicate, hyper-realistic sugar peonies. I poured every ounce of my love, meticulous attention to detail, and physical energy into every single layer of vanilla buttercream and almond sponge. When it was finally finished, the cake was so breathtakingly magnificent that I actually shed tears of pride standing in my kitchen. But then, 3 days before the wedding, my entire sky collapsed. That morning, with dark circles under my eyes and my body completely exhausted, I collapsed onto my living room sofa and mindlessly scrolled through Instagram. A new post from Chloe's account popped up at the very top of my feed. It was a photograph of the detailed sketch of the wedding cake, the exact sketch I had hand-drawn and given to her for approval the week prior. But the caption attached to it hit me like a physical punch to the gut. "I am beyond speechless." Feeling so incredibly honored and blessed to have the world-renowned French pastry master, Chef Laurent, exclusively design this masterpiece for our big day. Cannot wait to cut into this dream. Number luxury wedding, number Chef Laurent, number dream wedding. The post already had over 50,000 likes. Hundreds of comments were gushing over Chloe's lavish lifestyle and elite connections. There was not a single word, not a single buried hashtag mentioning the name Elara or my small struggling bakery. She had blatantly stolen my intellectual property, my sweat, my blood, and my tears, and handed the credit over to some famous chef just to fuel her high society facade.
Hi everyone, Justice Glow here. Let's pause Alara's story for just a moment. Do you recognize this incredibly common formula used by emotional manipulators? Toxic family members will frequently use the concept of family duty to pressure you into working for free, draining your energy and resources. But the second there is praise or success to be claimed, they immediately push you back into the shadows to feed their own vanity. If you've ever had your hard work exploited by relatives who treated you like you were invisible, hit the any key in the comments below. Now, let's see how Elara reacts to this brutal betrayal.
My hands were shaking violently. The anger flared up so intensely that a high-pitched ringing echoed in my ears. I immediately dialed Chloe's number. She answered with a lazy, indifferent drawl. "Chloe, what the hell is that Instagram post?" I screamed into the receiver. "That is my design. I stayed awake for 4 nights straight making that cake." The line went dead silent for a second, followed by a cold, heavy sigh. "Oh my God, Elara, why do you always have to be so dramatic?" Chloe snapped. "His family is old money. They are elite. Do you honestly think I can look them in the eye and say my wedding cake was baked by my nobody little sister who runs a pathetic, rundown shop on the corner? You don't have a name." Borrowing Chef Laurent's name is just to save face for both our families. The cake is still yours, so what exactly are you losing? Just be a good sister and deliver it on time. Before I could even open my mouth to argue, I heard my mother snatch the phone from Chloe's hand. Her voice hissed through the speaker, sharp and threatening. Alara, stop being so selfish and petty. We are family. Why are you calculating over a silly title? Are you really going to ruin your sister's perfect day over your pathetic jealousy? Deliver the cake to the hotel by 4 p.m. on Saturday. And do not cause a scene. Click. They hung up on me, leaving me standing completely frozen in the middle of my kitchen, surrounded by the heavy scent of butter and sugar. I swallowed that bitter, suffocating lump of rage down to the very bottom of my stomach, telling myself I would just deliver the cake, fulfill this idiotic blood obligation, and then disappear from their toxic lives forever. But I was wrong. This blatant theft of my work wasn't even the worst of it. The true humiliation, the cruelest disrespect that would push me past the point of no return, was still waiting for me at the wedding reception. Saturday arrived, and I drove my small, dented bakery van up the winding, manicured driveway of the most exclusive five-star hotel in the city. In the back of the van, perfectly secured and chilled, sat the five-tier masterpiece. I had spent the entire morning carefully transporting it and assembling it on the grand dessert display. It stood over 4 feet tall, cascading with hundreds of hand-painted sugar peonies that looked so delicate they might flutter away in the breeze. I was completely exhausted. My bones ached, my fingers were taped up from sugar burns, and I had barely slept in a week. Yet, as I slipped into the venue's public restroom to change out of my flour-dusted uniform and into the elegant navy blue dress I had bought specifically for this occasion, a pathetic little spark of hope flickered in my chest. I told myself that surely, after sacrificing my health and my dignity to save her wedding, Chloe would at least acknowledge me today. Even though I had been completely excluded from her extravagant 12-woman bridal party, I thought I would at least be granted the basic respect of being treated like the bride's sister. I took a deep breath, smoothed down my dress, and walked into the grand ballroom for the evening reception. The room was breathtakingly opulent. Crystal chandeliers hung from the vaulted ceiling, casting a warm, golden glow over the massive space. The tables were draped in heavy silk, adorned with towering centerpieces of imported white roses and gold-rimmed crystal glassware. The air smelled of expensive perfume, roasted prime rib, and old money. I made my way to the entrance foyer, where a massive, gold-framed seating chart was displayed on an easel. I scanned the list for my name. I skipped past the head table, where the bridal party would sit. I didn't expect to be there. I immediately looked at Table 1 and Table 2, the designated VIP family tables situated right next to the dance floor. I saw my mother's name, my father's name, my aunts, my uncles, and even distant cousins who had flown in from across the country. But not Alara. My brow furrowed in confusion. I scanned Table 3, Table 4, Table 10. My name wasn't anywhere in the main seating clusters. Panic began to flutter in my throat. Had they forgotten to seat me? Had my name been left off the list entirely? I nervously flagged down a wedding coordinator who was rushing past with a clipboard. I gave her my name. She ran her manicured finger down a separate, smaller sheet of paper hidden at the back of her board. Ah, yes, Alara, she said, giving me a tight, professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. You're at Table 28. Right this way, please. I followed her. We walked past the dance floor, past the luxurious family tables, past the college friends, the coworkers, and the plus ones. We kept walking until the plush carpet ended and turned into hard, scuffed linoleum. The golden lighting of the chandeliers faded, replaced by the harsh fluorescent glare coming from the swinging double doors of the kitchen. Here you are, Table 28, the coordinator said brightly before turning on her heel and vanishing back into the crowd. I froze, my breath caught in my throat, choking me. There was no Table 28. There was only a single mismatched red plastic folding chair pushed up against a bare patch of wall. It wasn't even at a table. It was wedged right in the narrow corridor between the swinging kitchen doors and the busing station, where the waiters were loudly, aggressively scraping half-eaten food from dirty plates into massive, foul-smelling garbage bins. This was my seat, a wobbly plastic chair by the trash. I stood there, completely paralyzed, as waiters shoved past me, carrying trays of champagne and irritatedly muttering at me to get out of the way. The smell of stale wine and discarded food hit my nose, making my stomach churn. I felt my face burn with a humiliation so profound, so suffocating, that for a moment I actually thought I was going to pass out. It felt like a sick, twisted joke. Slowly, I turned my head to look back out into the grand, glittering ballroom. Through the sea of hundreds of elegantly dressed guests, I could see the main stage. Chloe and her new husband were standing there, holding microphones, and right beside them, illuminated by two massive spotlights, was my cake. The room fell quiet as the groom's wealthy father took the microphone. I watched, trapped in my dark corner by the garbage cans, as he proudly announced to the room, and a special toast to this incredible couple, who actually managed to get the legendary chef Laurent to exclusively design this breathtaking cake. Let's hear it for the bride's exquisite taste. The ballroom erupted into thunderous applause. Chloe beamed, raising her champagne flute, soaking in the praise for a masterpiece she had stolen from me. She looked radiant. She looked perfect. Not once did she look towards the back of the room. Not once did she look for the sister who had stayed up for 4 days bleeding over that sugarwork, who was now standing next to a pile of dirty dishes. I looked at the plastic chair, then I looked at the golden child on the stage. And in that exact moment, something inside me, something that had been bending and accommodating and shrinking my entire life, finally snapped. The quiet ache of sadness completely evaporated, replaced by a cold, blinding, razor-sharp fury. I didn't cry. I didn't sit down. I simply turned around and pushed the heavy exit doors open. The heavy oak doors of the grand ballroom slammed shut behind me, instantly cutting off the suffocating noise of the reception. As I stepped out into the crisp, cool night air of the hotel parking lot, my heart was racing with a wild mix of anger and newfound freedom. There was no dramatic yelling inside, no flipping of tables, just me, finally choosing to step out of the shadows. I walked briskly across the paved lot toward my small bakery van, feeling the physical weight of 28 years of disrespect beginning to lift off my shoulders. I had barely reached my car when I heard the frantic crunching of gravel behind me. Halfway across the parking lot, my name was loudly called out. I froze, turned around, and saw Chloe standing there in her extravagant second wedding dress, her figure glowing under the harsh hotel security lights. Her expensive heels were sinking into the dirt, and her perfectly contoured face was twisted in panicked irritation. "Alara, where are you going?" she demanded, aggressively crossing her arms. "You can't just leave. It's my wedding day." I simply stared at her. Not a single tear formed in my eyes. The girl who used to silently cry in her bedroom because her family ignored her was completely gone. "Exactly," I snapped, my voice eerily calm but icy. "It's your wedding day." And I got a folding chair by the kitchen. I took a step toward her, closing the distance. "You had room for everyone in that hall, distant cousins we haven't seen since July, and your husband's old college friends, but not for me, your own sister." Chloe fidgeted nervously, momentarily avoiding my eyes as her authoritative facade began to crack. It wasn't like that," she stammered, her voice shaking. "We just ran out of space." I let out a bitter, hollow laugh that echoed in the empty parking lot. "You ran out of space? You had 22 luxurious tables in that room, Chloe." "You had room for 200 VIP guests, but you couldn't find a proper seat for me?" She didn't answer. Her silence was louder than any pathetic excuse she could have ever invented. "And it's not just the chair," I continued, my voice steady but sharp as a knife. "It's the cake. You took the masterpiece that I bled over for 4 days, the cake I built with my own blistered hands, and you proudly stood on that stage letting everyone believe some famous French chef made it. You stole my labor just to feed your fake Instagram life, and then you threw me by the trash like a stray dog. I've been invisible to you my whole life," I said, feeling a strange, powerful mix of anger and relief wash over me. "You always get the spotlight, and I always let you have it, but I am done shrinking myself so you can feel big. I'm tired of being the shadow. I deserve to be seen too." Chloe's lower lip began to tremble, realizing she had finally lost control over me. She stepped closer and pleaded softly, Please, Alara, don't do this now. Everyone's inside. Before I could even process her fake tears, my mother suddenly appeared from the lobby doors, her face tight with worry and furious frustration. Alara, what on earth are you doing out here? Your sister's crying, my mother hissed, immediately rushing to put a protective arm around her golden child. I simply leaned against the cold metal door of my van, completely unfazed. She did that to herself, Mom, I said quietly. My mother gasped, sighing loudly, as if I were the one causing all the problems. You're making a scene, she scolded. The seating was tight, that's all. Stop ruining her perfect night. I stared right into my mother's eyes, the woman who had spent my entire life telling me to let things go, the woman who never once saw my side. You let your daughter steal my intellectual property, claim it as her own, and sit me by the kitchen alone while complete strangers got family seats. And you genuinely think I'm the one making a scene? My mother opened her mouth to argue, but for the first time in her life, she had absolutely nothing to say. I didn't wait for a response. I climbed into the driver's seat, rolled up my window, and started the engine. As I looked in my rearview mirror, I saw Chloe still standing there, the glowing lights reflecting off her dress as tears finally ruined her flawless makeup. For the first time in my entire life, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. I put the car in drive and pulled away, not driving straight home, but taking the long, winding roads through the valley to let the cool night breeze blow through the windows. My phone kept buzzing relentlessly on the passenger seat with messages from my mom and Chloe, but I didn't even glance at it. As the lights of the luxury hotel completely faded behind me, the invisible chains that had held me back my whole life finally broke. I was free. When I finally got back to my small apartment, my phone was a chaotic mess of notifications. There were 30 missed calls, mostly furious texts from my mother demanding I return and apologize, and panicked messages from Chloe. I didn't reply to a single one. Instead, I opened my laptop and my phone's camera roll. Over the past 2 weeks, I had recorded dozens of short video clips of my baking process, time-stamped footage of me sketching the original design, kneading the fondant, baking the almond sponge, and painstakingly hand-painting every single sugar peony at 3 a.m. I compiled everything into a single, undeniable video. I didn't add any dramatic music or angry voiceovers. I just let the raw footage speak for itself. I posted it on TikTok and Instagram Reels with a simple, factual caption. The 100-hour process of making my sister's luxury wedding cake. The exact same cake she publicly credited to Chef Laurent. Then, I turned my phone off and went to sleep, feeling lighter than I had in years. When I woke up the next morning, my entire world had shifted. The video hadn't just gone viral, it had exploded. It had millions of views and hundreds of thousands of comments. The internet had done what it does best: absolute ruthless sleuthing. People had instantly recognized Chloe from her public influencer profile and flooded her comment section, calling out her blatant lie. But the absolute final blow, the true karma, came later that afternoon. The actual Chef Laurent, the world-renowned pastry master, caught wind of the scandal. His official PR team left a pinned comment on my video praising my sugar work and then released a public statement on his own page. He firmly denied any involvement with Chloe's wedding, called her actions a disgraceful theft of a young artist's labor, and threatened her management with a defamation lawsuit for unauthorized use of his brand name. The fallout was swift and catastrophic. Chloe's wealthy new in-laws were reportedly humiliated by the public scandal. Within 48 hours, 3 major lifestyle brands publicly dropped her from their sponsorship deals. She was forced to deactivate her Instagram account entirely. My mother called me, screaming that I had embarrassed the family and destroyed my sister's reputation. I calmly told her that Chloe destroyed her own reputation the second she decided to steal my work and put me by the trash. Then, I hung up and blocked their numbers. I was done. I didn't need their validation anymore. The following week, the line outside my small bakery wrapped around the block. People didn't just come to support the wrong sister. They came because my cakes were genuinely spectacular. I had finally built a life not tied to my family's approval. I wasn't the invisible shadow anymore. I was free.
Hi everyone, Justice Glow here. Before we wrap up, I want to make something clear. Today's story is a dramatized narration based on real experiences shared by our audience and community character details. Names and certain events have been altered to protect identities. When we look at Ilara's journey, it perfectly illustrates a toxic family dynamic where blood obligation is weaponized to exploit a family member. The parents enable Chloe's narcissism, gaslighting Ilara into believing her hard work had no value unless it served her sister. Ilara walking away and posting that video wasn't an act of petty revenge. It was an act of radical boundary setting. Remember, sharing DNA with someone does not give them a free pass to steal your intellectual property, disrespect your labor, or treat you like you are invisible. What about you? If you were in Ilara's shoes, would you have exposed the truth to the internet, or would you have walked away quietly? Have you ever had to set a harsh boundary with a toxic relative? Share your thoughts and stories down in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Justice Glow for more stories about reclaiming your power and finding your voice. Stay strong and see you in the next video.